You want to know exactly which wide receivers to start or sit in week one? Well, get ready. We're about to tell you. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre, and he's Chris. Time to set those week one lineups to get that first victory of the season, and how sweet it will be. So don't forget that in addition to this Start Sit show, we are going to be live on Saturday, September 10th to answer all your Start Sit questions at every position. So join us there, and we'll help you set those winning lineups. Before we get to the games, let's go ahead and talk about those must starts, the guys that you don't even have to think twice about. Just put them in your lineup right now. Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, and CeeDee Lamb. All right, let's start with that Thursday night matchup. We already have a pair of must-start receivers there, but what about the number two guys? Let's start with none other than Gabe Davis. Look, you got to be on one side or the other. You either have a really strong opinion about Gabe Davis or you don't know who he is, right? There's no in between with him. So, Chris, pick a side.
I mean, tough matchup against the Rams, but you drafted him. You got to start him. I think this should be an absolute high-scoring shootout, so got to start him.
You got to start him. Look, based on his ridiculous ADP at this point, and I lean towards being more of a Davis, I'm not going to say a truther, but a supporter. But yeah, you have to start him in this week. It's going to be a high-scoring game. And to me, Allen Robinson, I think he's a must-start for sure.
Yeah, no doubt, must start going against this Buffalo defense. Got to start him.
All right, let's get to the Eagles and the Lions. So we know A.J. Brown should be in your lineup. Devontae Smith, do you feel as strong about him?
Not as strong. I feel good about him. I think he's a nice, wide receiver 3 or a flex this week. So he's a good start, but not a must start.
I think he's a solid start. Look, it's the Lions. They have a decent secondary, but I really feel like the Eagles will run over them in this game. I like Devontae Smith. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah, I know he won some people leagues last year. This is a different season. So how do you feel about him going against Philly?
I know people are going to get upset, but I'm going to say must sit. This Philly secondary is really good. This defense is really good. He'll get some catches, but I don't think he's going to have a very good game this week. I got him as a sit.
I do too, and in fact, I feel even stronger about it. I explained that in one of our upcoming videos where I explain why I think he's actually going to bust. 49ers and Bears, interesting matchup with a pair of young quarterbacks who really have to prove themselves this year with Trey Lance and Justin Fields. Is Trey Lance going to throw it to Brandon Ayuk enough to make him worth starting?
I hope so, but I wouldn't want to have to trust Brandon Ayuk just this week. I'd like to see a little bit from Trey Lance first, so I'm not going to say a must sit, but he's more like a flex play.
Agree there. I think he's a strong flex play, but I wouldn't go out of my way to force him in my starting lineup because honestly, I really don't know how much the 49ers are going to have to air it out against the Bears. And then on the other side there, Darnell Mooney, without a doubt the top target in Chicago. This offense going against this defense could be shaky. So Darnell Mooney, week one.
I mean, brutal matchup, but I think you still have to start him because he's going to get the bulk of the targets. He may not have a huge, ceiling in this game, but he'll have a nice high floor. So I think you got to start him.
Yeah, I think Mooney's going to be one of those rare guys who is the top receiver on a bad team that even in bad matchups, you still start him just because the target share will be massive. So to me, you got to start. And then let's talk about the Steelers and Bengals. Lots of talent in the receiving core for these two teams. So let's go on the Steelers side. Deontay Johnson not catching from Big Ben anymore. He's going to have Mitch Trubisky. Does that make you any more or less favorable on Deontay?
I mean, less favorable, but not enough to bench him. I think he's still a solid wide receiver 2 start.
I'm down on him, not going to lie, but I'm not going to say you have to sit him. I do still think he's more of a wide receiver 3 type, so I would say he could be flex. So he's a iffy start for me. Chase Claypool, no, I'm just getting more and more down on him, especially because the deep ball, look, I know Big Ben couldn't really throw it deep at all last year, but it's not like Trubisky's that much better. I don't think this offense is really going to use that, at this point. It's going to run through Najee. I'm going to say I'm going to sit Chase Claypool if I have him.
Yeah, I'm sitting Chase Claypool as well.
And then the exciting rookie, but still a rookie in his first NFL game, George Pickens. Thoughts on him?
Like George Pickens long term. Don't like him in week one. I'm sitting him.
Agree. We need to see some more about him in regular season action, not just the preseason. All right, and then we got T. Higgins, super talented receiver, high draft pick. Probably have to start him, right?
Yeah, you got to start T. Higgins, absolutely.
And then Tyler Boyd, same thing?
Tyler Boyd's okay as a deep PPR league flex, but he's never more than that without an injury to one of the top guys, so that's about it.
Yeah, I agree. He's an okay start if you need him, but probably best for at least 12-team leagues or deeper. All right, the Patriots are going to Miami to visit the Dolphins. Look, I know Waddle was a little banged up this preseason, but I think he should be good for week 1. So against the Patriots, how do you feel?
Yeah, not as must start like Tyreek, but still a very good, solid start.
Yeah, look, if he's out there, I think you got to start him. Patriots, really not a lot to talk about as far as receiving talent, but I guess Jacoby Myers is their top target. Do you have any inclination to put him in your fantasy lineup?
He's like a slightly better Tyler Boyd as far as PPR flex goes. He'll get more targets than Tyler Boyd probably, but just a PPR flex.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about this entire passing offense, but I do think Myers is the number 1 target there. Look, maybe Devontae Parker has like a revenge game in mind, but I don't really think he's good enough to pull that off. So I would say you can ignore all Patriots receivers other than Myers, but even to me, he's just a flex. All right, Browns and Panthers, a lot of new faces on both sides. And let's start with Amari Cooper, now in Cleveland, but catching passes from Jacoby Brissett. How do you feel about him?
No way. I can't do it with Jacoby Brissett. At least let me see it once before I trust him. I'm sitting Cooper.
Yeah, look, I hate to say you have to sit him. I would say he's okay. He could be flexed because look, he's still the number 1 guy there. There's really not a ton of competition for targets at receiver in Cleveland. So I think he can be started, but he's not a must start. And then the other side, we got DJ Moore now catching passes from Baker Mayfield. How do you feel about DJ Moore in this game?
I'm going to shock everybody, but I'm going to say he's a must start this week because it's Baker Mayfield revenge game. He already said he's going to F the Browns up. This is going to be Baker Mayfield's best game of the entire season. You better take advantage of it with DJ Moore.
Yeah, and just to mess with us, he's probably just going to feed Rashard Higgins a lot and not DJ Moore. But no, I agree. Moore is a guy you probably have to start. All right, Colts and Texans. I have a feeling I know which way you're going to lean on this, but Michael Pittman, top receiver for Indy, go.
No doubt must start. I've talked about him in an upcoming video. Check that out, but must start.
Agree. Definitely must start. And then Brandon Cooks on the other side for Houston. I mean, he's kind of all they got too, right? You've got to start him.
Yeah, I'm not as excited about him as I am as Pittman, but he's a good start as well this week.
All right, and then the Saints and the Falcons. Oh, man, the Saints offense will be interesting to watch. Okay, so let's start with Michael Thomas. I mean, you know my feelings on him. I don't want to draft him, and there's no way I'm putting him in a fantasy lineup, even if I had him in week 1. I want to see that he actually can run at full speed. So for me, it's a no. What about you?
The only thing maybe making me say he's like flex worthy, maybe startable, is it's the Falcons. They're just so bad on defense, but don't love it. I'd only like him in deeper leagues as a flex this week.
All right, fair enough. And what about Jarvis Landry?
Same. I mean, Jarvis Landry just is what he is. He's a decent flex play.
Yeah, full PPR league, okay as a flex. I think you can start him, but never super exciting. What about the rookie who could be exciting? Chris Olave just needs that one play. Got Jameis Winston. What do you think? You roll him out?
It's just so hard for me to start rookie wide receivers in week 1. So I love Olave. I think he'll be great long term, but can't do it this week.
Yeah, and I really don't think they're going to need to pass a lot because it's the Falcons. So I would say no to Olave also. And the other side, well, another rookie is Drake London. I mean, after Pitts, he's the guy, and there's really not much else at receiver. So what do you think about London? Pass too?
Yeah, I got to pass. Not only that, coming off the knee injury, he's barely had any training camp. So not liking Drake London in week 1.
Yeah, look, I really didn't draft Drake London anywhere, and I'm not starting him even if I have him. All right, the Ravens play the Jets, and that's going to feature 2 of my very favorite second-year receivers. Let's start with Rashad Bateman, who I'm going to say more often than not, most weeks, is a must-start because he's the guy there. So against the Jets, yeah, you got to start Bateman, right?
Yeah, I agree. Against the Jets, Bateman must start.
All right, now here's an interesting, another revenge game. There's a lot of revenge games. It's only week 1, and we have all these revenge games. Joe Flacco facing his former team, the Ravens. Not what you were expecting there, right? How does that make you feel about Elijah Moore?
Yeah, Elijah Moore, a solid start, a very good start. Not like I wish it wasn't Joe Flacco, but it is. But he's still a very good start.
Hey, Joe Flacco for him might actually be a really good thing, and I explained that a lot in our upcoming Boom video, so check that out. You might be surprised. What about Garrett Wilson, the rookie? Keep the theme going. Bench the rookie wide receiver week 1.
I already said it. Yeah, unless it's like a generational talent who's walking into a number 1 role, I'm gonna wait at least a week or 2 on these rookie wide receivers. So yeah, no Garrett Wilson for me.
And honestly, he didn't really make a lot of noise this training camp. Some people think might need a little bit more time to adjust. So yeah, I would say back off of Wilson. Jaguars and Commanders. Okay, so now the Jaguars receiving room includes Christian Kirk as probably the most overpaid receiver in the league. But you got to start him in fantasy, or do you?
I don't think you have to start him, but I think he's a solid start this week. So I feel good about him as my wide receiver 3, maybe even my wide receiver 2, but more likely my wide receiver 3.
I'd say he's okay. You can start him. I don't feel compelled to start him just because they threw a lot of money at him and because he's being drafted or whatever he is in fantasy. I'm not even sure he'll be the top target in Jacksonville, and I'm still very skeptical of that whole offense. All right, and then in Washington, Terry is still the guy. How do you feel about McLaurin in his first game with Carson Wentz?
Kind of like DJ Moore, this is probably as good as it's going to get. It's the Jaguars. You have to start Terry McLaurin this week. Take advantage of the matchup.
Definitely start Terry McLaurin, no questions there. And do I even need to ask? Jahan Dotson, rookie receiver, week 1.
Okay, now this is one rookie I might be okay with because it looks like he already has earned a big role in this offense. They like him. They like what he does. And his skill set is exactly not what Terry McLaurin it does in this offense. So I think there will be a role for him. I'm not super excited about him. I don't think he's a must start. I think he's okay as a flex.
And look, he did make a lot of noise in training camp. They're saying that he didn't have a single drop and he's getting more targets than Terry. Take that all with a grain of salt. But yeah, I think he could be a sneaky flex play. So definitely not a must start, but somebody I would be okay rolling with. Packers and Vikings. Oh, the Packers. Who is going to be the top receiver for them this year? Is it Allen Lazard, and do you feel good about him against the Vikes?
I think it will be Allen Lazard, and yes, I feel fairly good about him against the Vikings. Not a dominant defense by any stretch, so to me, Allen Lazard, a good start.
Yeah, in this matchup, you can take advantage of him. I think you can start him because of that touchdown upside. But here's the big question is, Romeo Doubs, the new generational talent, the future Hall of Famer, right? Let's just put it bluntly. Are you starting Romeo Doubs?
No chance, no way. It looks like he's behind Sammy Watkins, Allen Lazard, and Randall Cobb at the moment. Now, his time could come, but it's not here yet. No way I'm starting him.
Yeah, I'd not start. Even if you drafted him, and even if you're a truther, just wait 1 week and see. All right, if he explodes and goes off in week 1, we'll apologize later. All right, now what about Adam Thielen? I mean, to me, if he's healthy, you got to start him.
Yeah, if he's healthy, you've got to start him. Has all sorts of touchdown upside.
What about the third receiver, KJ Osborne?
Yeah, I like KJ Osborne this year. I think they will feature him more in 3 wide receiver sets, but this Packers secondary is really good. I'm going to avoid KJ Osborne.
I'm going to say he's flex worthy. You can throw him out there because I do think his target share will be decent. We know they're going to go with 11 personnel a lot more, and this should be a high-scoring game. So I think you could start Osborne. He's not high priority, but I think he's better than some other guys we'll talk about. All right, a game that might not have too much fireworks in terms of the aerial attacks here, but we got to talk about the Giants and the Titans. So for the Giants, I guess Kenny Golladay is still there. Kenny Golladay, fantasy.
No way. No way. You can't be starting Kenny Golladay. Come on, no way.
I had to ask. No, you shouldn't. I wonder how long he'll even be in the lineup at this point. What about Kadarius Toney, though? Look, just get the ball in his hands. He could do something with it.
Yeah, he's always got a chance to break one and take it to the house, but no consistency. Not going to get a big target share. So to me, just like a desperation flex play.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good matchup. Tennessee gave a ton of points up, to receivers last year. But Toney he has trouble staying healthy. Daniel Jones is just not that good of a passer. I'll wait and see what he does in week 1 and then reconsider. And then the other side, look, we got Robert Woods coming back from ACL, now with Tennessee. Does he have any interest for you?
No, I avoid most rookies in week 1, and I also avoid guys coming off ACL in week 1. So, no, I would not put Robert Woods in my lineup.
Yeah, again, the matchup is pretty good on paper, but Tennessee's just going to run the ball 50 times. And Robert Woods, what is the true upside here? I'm going to pass on Woods this week, and I'm not even going to ask about Traylon Burks because I already know the answer, so no to Traylon Burks. All right, West Coast matchup here. The Raiders and the Chargers could be a high-scoring game. Definitely one of interest to fantasy managers. Let's start with Hunter Renfrow. Look, had a pretty solid run. With Devontae Adams now in the mix, how does that make you feel about Renfrow?
I feel okay about Renfrow. This isn't the worst matchup for him, and he's another guy in PPR, has a nice safe floor. Not a ton of upside, but a good safe floor. So I think if he's your flex, I'd feel pretty good about him.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Last year, I was kind of banging the table saying Renfrow was being overrated because he had just this, small stretch of games where he was really dominant, and now Adams coming in. But I'm starting to feel like he's going to be a little undervalued this year because of Adams coming in. I think he's a solid start in PPR leagues. I would say, yeah, you should start him in this game. And then, of course, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams both there for the Chargers. I noticed Keenan Allen's not a must start anymore, at least not in our no-brainer section. But isn't he kind of a must start?
Yeah, he's one of those guys that, you're going to start him most weeks in most matchups, but he's not like a no-brainer, don't even think about it kind of guy, but a good start this week for sure.
Yeah, I think solid start here for sure. You put him in your lineup. And I know you feel stronger about Mike Williams than I do. I do still think you roll him out in week 1. I'm guessing you feel the same.
Yeah, Mike Williams is a guy you almost can't bench because you always run the risk of leaving 30-plus points on your bench. So you've got to have him out there.
Chiefs and Cardinals. All right, so the Chiefs have a ton of kind of mediocre receiver types, to be honest. No more Tyreek Hill. They still have Travis Kelce. Let's start with Juju. A lot of different opinions on Juju. How do you feel week 1?
I think he's fine. He's a solid start. I'm not expecting, a massive game, but I think he'll be good and he'll be a solid start.
Yeah, I think he's okay. I'll put him in the wide receiver 3 conversation, let's say, for this week. He's still technically going to be their lead target, we think, so I'd say he's okay. MVS, I'm just going to go with a hard no.
Yeah, I'm never starting MVS. He's a guy like, sure, any game he can catch a long touchdown, but good luck guessing which game it'll be, so nope, not starting him.
And then Hollywood Brown, now the top target there without DeAndre Hopkins for the time being. I kind of feel like you have to start Marquise Brown.
Yeah, you got to start him. I mean, probably going to be a must start almost every week, but especially these first 6 games without Hopkins.
Tampa Bay facing Dallas. Look, we know Evans is a must start. Godwin, we really don't know much about his status, kind of still up in the air. So let's talk about Russell Gage. I know he's kind of a trendy sleeper. We like him this preseason to draft, but do you start him in week 1?
Yeah, Gage is tough because on the one hand, they released Tyler Johnson, which makes you think maybe they have confidence in Gage, but we're not hearing much about his, the hamstring or whatever the soft tissue injury is, so I'm a little nervous about Gage. Unless we hear something like he's good to go, no issues at all, I think I'm going to try to sit Russell Gage this week.
That's interesting. I'm going to say if he's good to go, if there's, no injury status whatsoever, I'd say I'm going to start him because, probably Godwin, even if he plays, which I don't think he will, not going to be 100%. And the guy we're about to talk about, I'm not really too worried about him. I'm going to say yes to Gage for now. And then there's Julio Jones. Look, I guess they have confidence in him because, like you said, they dropped, Tyler Johnson, they cut him. Cyril Grayson, they cut him. Jalen Dart, and all these other receivers. So does that mean Julio has a role?
I think he has a role, but I'm still not starting him. I mean, this guy was dust last year. I know it's Tom Brady, and you think he can revive him, but I'm not seeing it. Maybe he catches a touchdown, but I think that's about it. Not starting Julio Jones.
No, I'm not making that mistake twice after I started him week 1 last year in Tennessee. No, not doing it again. And then the Broncos and Seahawks will be an interesting game, especially if you're a Denver fan. So who is the receiver that will benefit most? Cortland Sutton. I know he's your guy. You probably have him in a lot of your lineups in week 1.
Yeah, Russell Wilson going back to Seattle against a terrible secondary. Russell Wilson's going to smash. Cortland Sutton's going to smash. You got to start him.
Definitely got to start Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy, kind of an interesting, uneven offseason. kind of feel like you have to start him here too?
Yeah, the matchup's too good. Got Russell Wilson. You got to start Jerry Jeudy as well.
There you go. Agree. Especially Tim Patrick being out for the season. Big blow, but that lessens their depth. More targets for those two guys. Geno Smith at quarterback for Seattle. How does that make you feel about DK Metcalf?
I mean, not good. If you watch our videos all off season, you know how I feel about DK Metcalf. And I talk about him in another video this week for week 1, so watch that one. But nope, not starting DK Metcalf.
I wonder what the theme of that video could be. Yeah, well, I love DK, but, as a player, great. But in fantasy, man, I just have to be down on him this season. You have to. Look, he could score a touchdown, but this is a good defense. I'm not expecting good things. I would say you could still flex him out, but run it at your own risk. And then Tyler Lockett, I'm just putting on my bench. I'm not starting him.
Yeah, no way. And even if it wasn't, the Broncos, I wouldn't start them. But it is the Broncos. Their defense is incredible. No way I'm starting Tyler Lockett.
Now that we've covered which wide receivers to start, remember it's just as important, if not more, to decide which running backs should be in your lineup. Click this video right here to find out who we think that you should start or sit.